There's no reason for me to beat around the bush. I'm certain that my intentionally incendiary thumbnail composition has already broken enough ice to flood the Florida Keys. Pill Baby is an excellent game that is a victim to its own ambitions and mismatched gameplay elements. It's a game which twists and turns with alacrity between two disconnected spiritual components, which, at a glance, look randomly selected as if a blindfolded Luke Littler had a few too many sugar-free Juneberry Red Bulls before stepping up to the big stage. The bulk of this gameplay falters and festers inside its own awkward execution and repetitive encounters. Mechanically, there's a whisper of variety orally wafting near the player's area, but functionally a tease isn't a show, but you're gonna pay full price regardless. This may all sound resoundingly negative, especially for a video hook. Typically, retention data dictates holding back this sort of Mike Tyson devastating right straight until an emotionally slanted crescendo at 3/4 video runtime. But wait, withhold your brutally fragile, critically vulturous sentiments for the briefest beat, because despite my overflowing frustrations and legitimate criticisms, Pill Baby somehow manages to overcome its base design considerations by extolling the profound virtue of effort and heart scattered throughout its narrative scaffolding and unique presentation. Pill Baby's combat in many ways feels like a rebuttal to a slipshod notion about cogent narratives in relation to gameplay. However, the story displays such enormous heart, focus, ingenuity, and ludonarrative cohesion that the awkward, recurrent, and off-pacing, debilitating combat feels like paying a proverbial fee prior to engaging with the worthwhile character and surrealistic overarching narrative beats. It's like pushing a squalid, filth-crusted quarter into a Pizza Hut Ancient Turtles in Time arcade cabinet as the mandatory cost of attempting to make friends at your mom's friend's kid's birthday party, a nasty little prerequisite of uncertain value until the action itself is begrudgingly completed. In this video, I intend on further gushing forth a flood of contradictory information in an effort to arrive at a succinct conclusion regarding my feelings about Pill Baby. For now, I want to present you with a thesis statement. Pill Baby is a game that is narratively stellar despite its own worst impulses, and I think I'm in love. Alternative title, How I Learned to Stop Microanalyzing and Enjoy the Ride. Our story follows Anna, an immigrant from an unnamed country, as she navigates the trials of assimilating with a new culture, all the while contending with dangerous visa-granting employment. In reality, dangerous does not even come close to describing Anna's occupation. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Dire, desperate, debilitating, short-sighted, cruel, dehumanizing, and brutal hold equal stake as descriptors, but that will soon become clear. Recently, a horde of otherworldly parasitic creatures have crawled through the space between reality and fiction. To combat this horde of monsters, either government entities or private vigilante businesses have begun counter-assaults focused on eliminating and tracking movements of the parasites. The individuals who stand on the front lines don't stand unaided in their cause. Unfortunately, that aid comes in the form of performance-enhancing drugs that grant super strength and agility. Alongside these physical benefits, there come a slew of mental after effects that drastically alter the user's perceptions. Across 8 in-game chapters, we are granted a view into Anna's internal struggles with her grueling employment, learning a new language, creating exciting new and maintaining old relationships, and living with the physical and psychoactive side effects related to her regular required drug usage. During the brief, almost feature-length runtime, we live as Anna as she rotates between her job site, her studio apartment, and her precious third location, the cafe. We, for a single eternity's blink, interface with Anna's emotions, reservations, fears, and perceptions of her sordid reality. Through clever pacing, unique visuals, and incisive writing, Pill Baby manages to present a consistently engaging narrative that revels in its own ability to connect players to our protagonist's physically new, employment bizarre, and psychoactive hallucinatory surroundings. In many locations scattered across the runtime, Pill Baby caters to a more tactile storytelling strategy, allowing players to expressly control or navigate unique narrative spaces. In many ways, the overall gameplay loop exists to further contextualize the danger Anna is faced with on a daily basis. To better understand this core gameplay, we need to overview the full scope of combat's reach, and then pivot into a micro-analysis of how Pill Baby's gameplay works in tandem with the intriguing narrative to land with seismic authority. Our daintily ordained surroundings have a hanging distasteful stench of dung. A rapid, room-wide ocular pat-down identifies our pachyderm-shaped elephant culprit. Pill Baby, at its heart, in its moment-to-moment player input-oriented gameplay dense zones, is a 2D moderately paced action brawler that features simple combos and power-ups. Since the average player will easily spend 75% of Pill Baby's runtime big action-kicking gawky pink fleshy freaks, it is imperative we thoroughly overview the mechanics and provide ample review of the overall implementation. Let's begin with combat basics. When our main character swallows a pill, she is granted enormous supernatural powers which enable her to serve as humanity's shield against an ever-present and increasing sentient parasitic threat. Chemically empowered Anna utilizes a variety of light punches, heavy kicks, double jumps, intangible dashes, aerial assault options, and mechanical drone assistance to fight through 8 chapters worth of repetitive combat encounters in somewhat visually distinct locations. During combat, players collect coins from defeated enemies which enable the purchase of an ever-increasing catalog of equipment, combos, and upgrades. By purchasing these items, players can add some additional combat flavor and make minute adjustments that better align with each individual's preferred gameplay approach. For example, I am a heavy attacker at heart who prefers to land fewer, more sniper rifle-style potent heavyweight George Foreman jabs to proverbially grill my opposition, but if you are more of a Muhammad Ali float like a butterfly type player, then there's a loadout better suited for your particular temperament. These store-bought combo extensions, equipment, and upgrades unfortunately are forced to carry an almost unbearable weight, as the overall combat mechanics which proliferate the majority of the runtime quickly turn 5-day-old oxygen-exposed loaf of special purchase artisanal bread stale. Now that we have a functional grasp on the basics of combat, let's look laterally to the objects of our fist-shaped rage, the enemies. Pill Baby only features around half a dozen unique enemy types. Each of these enemies come in 2 varieties, red and purple. These colors technically provide variety, but they add no depth or complexity, since the colors only indicate increased HP and attack strength. Combats are presented in locked rooms with pillar of light walls preventing players from straying from the intended action zones. Enemies appear from spiraling ominous red ether portals and continue to spawn in waves as you pick apart the defenses one at a time. After final wave clearance, the literal level gates dissipate, allowing further progression. These levels offer very little outside of the frequent combat encounters. In essence, your reward for combat clearance is typically a red pill which provides a full heal, a brief jaunty respite, maybe a singular collectible for your apartment, and the rinse and repeat cycle beginning once again with a locked room style combat. About half the chapters in the game feature a hulking behemoth massive level boss with their own unique attack patterns. These bosses provide a slight jolt in difficulty and were responsible for my low normal difficulty death. Bosses overall provide a much needed liveliness and diversity that breaks from the regimented, obviously optimal approach regular combat encounters demand. It's a shame that only 4 boss fights exist throughout the 8 total chapters. On one hand, I understand the impulse of irregularly divvying out bosses to create a more frenetic, natural, and unexpected pace, which moderately better serves the superior narrative impetus surrounding the modular drag-and-drop combat. But on the other hand, a larger assortment of big bad enemies creates opportunities for more distinct encounters, mechanics, and challenges. The more time that passes and the more opportunity I have to consider Pill Baby's gameplay in context of its narrative, the more I am able to assign genuine thematic purpose to the proceedings. But just because I believe I've found a cogent ludonarrative through line does not absolve Pill Baby's central mechanics of their inherent flaws. These 2 variables, the requisite narrative suppositions required to bolster themes and the core mechanical systems, are not sufficient to cancel each other out. It is possible for both to paradoxically stand together in opposition to each. This push and pull electron-positron east and west dichotomy may seem like a massive contradiction, but with a modicum of media literacy and willingness to analyze and understand, these disparate elements somehow find a way to work in tandem. It's a shame that the actual in-the-trenches action combat mechanics don't add more in terms of intrigue or fun factor to maximize on the otherwise excellent writing and genuine sense of brutal reality meets magical realism otherworldliness that oozes throughout the fertile soil of Pill Baby's framework. Art has the power to transcend differences and to provide observers a glance into another person's intimate lived experiences. Video games, when positioned as art, enable a more tangible method to convey the profound weight of these experiences. When gameplay and narratives seamlessly integrate into a cohesive unit, where each element bolsters the other, we refer to this as ludonarrative harmony. Any game which achieves this level of cohesion stands amongst the giants of the medium. Pill Baby skirts this line at moments and exceeds its own best expectations. Largely, however, the gameplay overstays its welcome and fails to elevate itself or its story as one perfect unit. However, a deeper reading of the gameplay allows us to use reason to define the ways Pill Baby's gameplay and narrative mesh. I would not go as far as to assign the full lofty praise of ludonarrative harmony, instead favoring something more akin to ludonarrative consistency, a term I made up to create stratifications in the way we view gameplay and story as unique but critically entwined elements. For ludonarrative consistency, a work's gameplay and story are integrated in a logical manner that provides insight into one another, but do not propel or serve as a force multiplier for each other. If ludonarrative harmony is an exponential relationship, ludonarrative consistency is linear. To refresh, in Pill Baby, players take control of Anna, a young woman who has recently immigrated to a new country and works a dangerous, dehumanizing job that requires her to take performance-enhancing drugs to ward off parasitic threats. A game about the woes of alienation and malaise associated with integrating with a new culture while attempting to remain grounded in your maternal home is beyond enticing. This land, foreign and incomprehensible, dangerous and unknown, the Parasite Elimination Squad mirrors these feelings. The parasites themselves are familiar yet warped and grotesque. The job provides literal mortal danger around each corner, and the PEDs drive a wedge between reality and subconscious, just like the inter-country move has driven a wedge between our old reality and the new. I don't think it's an accident that the developer's intimate story about immigration includes our protagonist being forced into a dangerous line of work where she places her body on the line for the benefit of others. But it's more than that. Sure, the literal threats and immediate physical danger mirrors real life. More tellingly than that, we have a narrative about the difficult mental journey one undertakes when changing everything in their surroundings. The drugs, mind and body altering, enhancing and degrading, are just as salient in their metaphorical state as they would be as literal objects in a very literal story. The most notable piece of ludonarrative present in Pill Baby concerns our funds. When defeating enemies on missions, they drop coins which are spent on upgrades and equipment to enhance combat abilities for future chapters. Alongside the combat-oriented upgrades, players can also spend money on language lessons. While navigating the world and interacting with characters, you'll quickly realize that the majority of non-playable characters speak the native tongue of Anna's new home. As a fresh immigrant, Anna does not have a functioning knowledge of this foreign language. This breakdown of communication is remedied through the purchase of language lessons for 200 coins per lesson for 5 lessons total, coming out to 1,000 total coins. Even 1 or 2 lessons begins to break the bank if you have purchased any upgrades or equipment. Luckily for us, there's a job board to make extra money. It's a real tragedy that this is completely unintelligible without a working understanding of the language. This is stellar storytelling that is done with a deftness and cleverness that I wish extended deeper. By making it difficult to make money, players are placed in a subtextually dense forest of gameplay want and narrative need. By spending money on language lessons, players further Anna's narrative and concretely set her on the path to integrating. This may enable you to read the job board to make more money, but there's no guarantee that even with a few lessons you can make sense of the board's request. On the other hand, by focusing on language first, players must forego new combos, gloves, and drone assistance. In essence, a choice must be made. Should you spend your money on integrating and learning the language with hopes of seeing returns in the future, or instead focus on upgrades and equipment that will immediately benefit you through the main story chapters? On my first playthrough, I prioritized purchasing combat enhancements, but by doing so, I was only able to level up language proficiency twice. This created a few incredible narrative moments, as main characters ditched speaking to Anna on Anna's terms and instead began speaking in a language which may as well have been birthed by the arcane. By only knowing a small portion of the language, these moments where characters speak effectively over or around or through Anna land with much more authority and desperately beg the question, what would have happened if I did this all differently? I believe that by creating this catch-22 type situation surrounding money, our dangerous, vile, debilitating job earn us, it allows the players to draw comparisons to how it is difficult to get ahead in life, especially when you're a new person in a new place, and how being forced to choose between investing back into your employment, which actively generates an income, or instead investing in social capital is in many ways a lose-lose situation. In a world where I prioritize language learning, would I just be making Pill Baby's already repetitive combat all the more boring by stripping away the combos, equipment, and upgrades? Or by prioritizing gameplay benefits, am I jeopardizing my ability to fully grasp and relate to the larger narrative moments? Regardless, these questions are enticing and worthwhile and are almost enough on their own to make me recommend this game with no hesitations. That almost recommendation, however, rapidly warps into a full-blown give Kaya Bros your money type recommendation during PB's last 2 chapters. That's right, a full-blown give them your money recommendation. Despite the drab, monotonous, and awkward combat, Pill Baby's engaging narrative seeds blossom into magnificent swaying willows. The early promises set forth at narrative inception not only arrive right on time, but deliver repeated haymakers full of insightful backstory and emotional revelry. During these moments, the already off-kilter art design and presentation ups the ante and gets weirder, creepier, and louder. With each text box read, more information swirls and the deplorable state of affairs present and brewing inside Anna reaches its crescendo. I don't want to spoil everything. I think for a game this short and this price, that would be an awfully tacky trick to pull. Pill Baby is effectively a feature film-length gaming experience that, despite its gameplay flaws, finds ways to continue to demand respect and adoration, and for that, I commend it with my whole heart. When I set out to put my frantic and contradictory thoughts on the page, I was uncertain where my mercurial head and steadfast heart would align. I understand that verity diminishes with every cascading aside and sentiment ablation. It's clear to me now that two things are often true, and acknowledging both in equal stern measures is not cruelty. However, cynicism is a slippery slope ripe with fallacious intruders. Maybe favoring the positive is more necessary now than ever, but can I call myself a critical analyst if I don't perform my God's given mission of indifferent gesticulations towards my self-conceived ferocious maw of truth? Also, why do I care so much that I can call myself a critical analyst? That's dumb as shit. Aren't I just a guy? Shouldn't I just talk about cool stuff when it's cool? Who knows? What I do know is that when people leave nasty comments on my videos without any form of constructive criticism, it hurts me a little bit. I still see myself as a neophyte dumped bare into a decades-long struggle for relevance. I learn as I go. I improve. I better myself. I better the product. The same, I assume, is true of Taha Kaya of Kaya Bros. When I conducted my preliminary research, I was astounded to learn that Taha is one of the pair who created Judero, a striking handmade claymation video game that I have had on my Steam wishlist for over a year, waiting for the right opportunity or proper Steam sale to include in a compendium-style buyer's guide. Taha has clearly taken the lessons learned from his early games and continues to push boundaries and create unique and weird digital interactive art exhibits that share his soul in his own unique way with the masses. Maybe that's why I've struggled with releasing this video with my opinions unaltered and unfiltered. After reading interviews, watching and listening to YouTube videos, jousting my fingers fully in that sweet succulent game development oeuvre pie, and buying the upcoming release hype, I started to see Taha Kaya as an authentic, focused, and creative individual who makes interesting and worthwhile games. I feel a weird, swirling, nebulous guilt for not loving Pill Baby's everything, like I may be missing something. Like another's art is lost on me, like I'm caught out in a hurricane and believe my umbrella sufficient for the torrents. I guess I just don't want to provide an earnest person with anything resembling bad press, though I'm hardly the press. In my full-time job, I deliver a great deal of unfortunate news. Some days I'd venture to call myself a professional bad news purveyor. I think my tolerance for devastation has heightened over the past half-decade as I continue to disrupt others' vibes out of a systemic Kafkaesque nightmare obligation to adhere to stuffy, uncomfortable, and arcanely rigid rules for the sake of that sweet drink of health insurance. It all tumbles down on me like a ton's worth of snow in an avalanche or a cartoon anvil on Porky Pig's sweet fat rump. Why am I feeling so conflicted, guilty, and awkward about this still very much positive, yet also critical review? All said, I'm in a mental slump and spiritual funk. Taha and team, if you made it to this point in the video, I'm going to break a rule that I think is written in the game reviewer's digital handbook in invisible ink and only spoken in tongues at rancid PAX meet and greets. I want to let you know I see your work and appreciate it, and I will buy Abide full price when it releases because I think you and Jack King Spooner are genuinely onto something. So who cares if Pill Baby's combat is scuffed as fuck? That's life, sometimes shit's scuffed. What's more important is that when Pill Baby isn't trying to justify its own existence as a game, and instead fully focuses its attention on its narrative thrust, intense themes, and decadent little experimental moments, Pill Baby becomes a one-of-a-kind must-play-for-yourself experience. In many ways, Pill Baby is great in spite of itself, and maybe more relevantly, Pill Baby is great when it commits to being itself. Full recommendation, no doubt. Thanks for watching. Howdy, wanted to provide a brief afterword for the real sickos out there. Firstly, and maybe most importantly, thank you again for watching. I appreciate it more than ever. Secondly, I've been told my reviews often follow a template of, I hated this game, this is why you should play it. Which I think sums me up quite well. I want to unwittingly stumble directly into what makes things interesting and good, even if they're not necessarily appealing to me on all levels. Pill Baby has a lot of great things going for it, like most works of non-cynically creative art, which means it's worth the time. Third, if you like this style of review, you can find it throughout all of my videos. It's kind of built into my writing style DNA. If you're looking for specific recommendations, YouTube will give those to you in a moment, but my recommendations would be one of the Weird Little Games videos or my full-blown review of Paradise Killer. The Weird Little Games videos are short little snippet reviews. The Paradise Killer reviews 2.5 hours. Regardless, it's been a pleasure. I may note that I've recorded a lot of this audio very early in the morning while my girlfriend was sleeping. So if it's a little weird, that's why. I don't want to be a jerk and wake anyone up. But again, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you in a few weeks with a long-winded video that is certified for the sickos. Bye-bye.